How much has not healing cost you? The opportunities you missed, the relationships that drained you, the decisions you made from pain instead of clarity. And that's not just emotional, that affects your finances. In today's episode of Girl Talk Mental Health, we have Dr. Shelbi Bradley, who's going to expose a truth most people avoid. Therapy is a wealth building move. So, welcome, Dr. Shelby, to the stage.
Hi.
All righty, ma'am. Introduce yourself so the audience can know who you are.
All right. So, thank you so much for having me this morning. My name is Dr. Shelbi Bradley. I am a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Mississippi. I specialize in work like domestic violence, trauma, um, sexual assault, substance abuse, grief, and self esteem. I am a co author of two books that I have recently written in the past, and I talk about my experiences with domestic violence and surviving grief and trauma. I co own Powerful Minds Counseling, which is an individual, independent private practice here in the state of Mississippi with my husband. And we offer individual and family counseling as well as some life coaching services. So I'm grateful and honored to be here and just appreciate the time to be able to share my knowledge with you all today.
Absolutely. And I love that you're in the business with your husband. That's what I'm talking about
Yes,
right there.
absolutely.
That's the bomb. So, are you ready for this impactful conversation?
I am. I am. I think we got some good gems to drop for the girls today.
Absolutely. So, why do you believe therapy is more than emotional support, but actually a wealth building strategy?
So, a lot of the decisions that we make come from our emotional well being. And so, if we are not emotionally healed, we make decisions, especially financial decisions, that can impact us long term. So, when we haven't healed in places, of our past, our current, or even our present with anxiety, that can affect how we move. And so, therapy, going through those processes, healing not only affects you mentally and emotionally, but also how you move in the world, how you spend, how you react to spending, how you control the things around you. So it's definitely worth the investment, and it definitely impacts you in more than one way when you invest in yourself just as you invest in yourself in other areas. We go to the doctor when we sick. We spend money on our hair and our nails because it helps us feel better. Well, we also got to spend that same time and investment into our brain and our emotions so that we heal in those ways as well.
Absolutely, because people only think that wealth is like money, but in order to get to the money, you have to have all these other areas of your life intact as well, and it kind of starts from your mental health, so that you can be emotionally healthy to deal with all of the challenges that life brings your way.
Our brains, our minds control everything. And when that is in a place of security, of stabilization, then that is what shows up in your life as well. I always remember a doctor telling me I can always tell how healthy a person is by their habits. And so when you feel good, do you continue to walk and take care of yourself? Or when you feel good or you feel bad, do you go and you eat and you're unhealthy? Because that's what your brain is trained to do. So when we get our brain on a secure level, it shows in the way we move in our everyday lives.
That's a good point there, to help people visualize that. So if they're doing unhealthy habits in their life, like eating unhealthy, communicating unhealthy, then that says something about their emotional, mental wellness as
Their
well.
well-being, absolutely.
That's good. That's a good warning sign too. Because you need. What about if you start, like if you're in a healthy space, right? But then you start doing those unhealthy things. That's a sign, right?
That's a sign. That's a sign that, like, oh, this is something I'm doing that's outside of my norm, that I don't always do. Maybe I need to look into why I'm doing that or how I can, stop or improve.
So, can you break down how unhealed trauma or emotional patterns actually impacts someone's financial decisions and earning potential. And we touched on that a little bit, but be more specific.
So, absolutely. So, unhealed trauma is such a wide and a broad thing to talk about, but it doesn't just live in your mind, like we say. It shows up in your behaviors, your relationship, and most importantly, your finances, and what we're talking about today. When someone has experienced like instability, rejection, or scarcity, which is the lack of historically, it can show how they affect, right? So sometimes people have like scarcity mindset, like I'm not gonna have enough. And so that leads to overworking. So if you feel like in the past you grew up in poverty and you never had enough, and now you've gotten to a place where okay, I have a career, I make 85, $90,000 a year. I see that on paper. So, but I want to get more so that I never go back to a position that I was in poverty. I overwork. I'm holding on to money. I'm really tight with money, and that limits me to be able to grow because when we have money, we do need to look at saving it and investing it and doing things in that way. But we also need to put it into other opportunities for growth. Also, you can have people who emotionally spend, right? Because oh well, I never had it before, so I'm going to treat myself. Every time we get a dollar, we're treating ourselves, and we're spending treating ourselves to with $2 and $3, and then we don't end up having. So we end up living paycheck to paycheck because we feel like we need a treat. You should be able to treat yourself, but there's balance when it comes down to anything. And then feeling guilty. So there, another thing is that okay, I make the money, I have the money, I balance it out, but then I feel guilty when I spend it because of my community. Maybe you have people who depend on you, or it could go somewhere else. So all of those things are based off of our trauma wounds and our history, or even our current circumstances. And that is how it can impact someone's financial decisions and their potential to grow.
That's good insight because you're making some connections that people very rarely make connections with, especially when it comes to the finances and that emotional spending. They think it's good to emotionally spend, or they validate it by, oh, I'm feeling so bad. I got to make myself feel better by going shopping and the retail therapy thing. But sometimes that's not a good way to deal with your emotions in a wealthy way. So finances, we deal with the wealth. So what are some other wealthy ways to manage your emotions besides just money, wealth, or financial?
Yeah. So rest is something that I have been speaking on so much in the last couple of weeks, not only in instances like this on podcasts and in big environments, but also just personally and within my clients. How our bodies feel when we are rested is a huge investment into how we take care of our self-care. So the amount of not just sleep, but actually resting our bodies. So slowing down and allowing our bodies to naturally go through things. Taking care of yourself physically, movement, drinking your water, taking your vitamins, going to the doctor. And, so many of us, especially Black women, we struggle with vitamin D deficiency. And when we don't know, why am I so fatigued, or why am I so, you know, tight? We're not getting the vitamins that we need. So we need to be making sure every 6 months we're doing our lab work and we're, taking care of ourselves. So we know what our bodies need and what we're missing and what we're not getting enough of. So mentally, spiritually, whatever your spiritual beliefs is, setting aside time to make sure that you are incorporating that into your life. Sometimes we can get in the habits of pushing aside our beliefs and, or not knowing what our true values are. And all of that is self care. So those are ways that you can strengthen your life, strengthen your body, and invest in yourself so that you become the best version of yourselves.
Absolutely. And then another component is the relationships that we have, right? That are connected to, it's wealth and having healthy relationships. And people, they don't see those other components. They think when you say wealth, they just think about money, bank accounts, being able to shop, drive a nice car, nice house, nice clothes, all of that. But wealth and therapy is way more than just money. honey. So,
Way more than money.
honey.
Hmm.
So why do so many high functioning and strong people invest in everything else but avoid investing in therapy?
I think because we look at it as something that we don't need. We look at therapy as for people who are sick, people who are struggling, people who are weakened. It's a something is wrong with me thing versus, like we said at the beginning, an actual investment into your mental health. Every client that steps into my office, I'm transparent with them and I tell them, I am a therapist who goes to therapy because, and there's not necessarily anything wrong in my life. I maybe go once a month. I maybe go twice a month. I go whenever I feel like I need it, and that's so I can stay stable. And so we look at, when people say, well, I have Jesus and I don't need therapy. I heard once on a podcast I was listening to, they said the next time somebody tells you that they need therapy, they don't need Jesus, tell them that they took a shower, they don't need deodorant, or they took a shower, they don't need lotion. And they watch how they like. No, I don't want to be ashy because you still need additional tools and resources to help you. You can have two things at once. Two things can coexist. So a lot of people look at it as it's something wrong and I don't need it. I have all of these other things, and they don't truly know that therapy is not a tell you what to do or a pill that instantly fixes you. It's the work that you have to do. So the analogy that I like to use when I'm talking to clients who are kind of skeptical about therapy is I tell them, think about getting in your car and you know where you're going, but sometimes maybe you're going to a new place and you turn on your navigation, whether that's Siri or Google or whatever your navigation is. You tell the navigation where you want to go. The navigation gives you directions and you start to drive and you say, well, I know this way is a little shorter, and you turn around and you go a different way. The GPS is going to start saying, no, turn back around, go the other way. But eventually, if you still drive, they're going to go with you. They're going to follow you. So that's what therapy is. I am the Siri, or I am your navigation. You tell me what you want to work on. I'm going to give you the tools and the resources and the direction. But you are in that driver's seat. I'm not the driver. I'm just the resource. And so when people look at it like that, instead of this instant pill and this instant thing that's going to fix me right away and tell me everything, I have people say, I want you to tell me what's wrong with me. I'm going to help you explore that. We're going to explore it together, but I'm not going to tell you because I can't tell you. I don't know. I'm not a magician. I'm a
Absolutely.
resource.
I feel like
So
you've
I,
been in my therapy session.
so I just feel like that's what we need to look at it as, and I think we're coming around to it, honestly, Virginia,
Mhm.
as as a society with this new generation. More people are talking about. More people are more comfortable saying, "Oh, I went to my therapist," or "I
Mhm.
talked to." So I think we're coming around to it. I just think we need to continue to put it on the forefront.
And that's kind of like one of the missions of this talk show is, and to have a lot of therapists on this year with a plethora of and diverse perspectives of mental health and background information and different techniques, different people and everything, so that people can be more comfortable with the different perspectives, and they don't want to think they're what they're experiencing is something that's not normal, or they the only ones secluded to that, and then they don't want to go get help because they think they the only ones. That's not wealth. Wealth is going
No.
to get yourself taken care of so that you can be well rounded in all areas of life. That's true wealth.
Yes, and you definitely hit on something. A lot of people feel like they don't have time, or they don't, that it's not a priority for them. They look at other things. Well, I have my family, I have this, I have that. And you cannot take care of someone else without taking care of yourself. You just can't. And I always say, when you wake up in the first thing in the morning, what's the first thing you do? It should be using the bathroom and washing and, getting yourself together. You have to do that. And when you don't get a chance to do that, your whole day is thrown off because you didn't get a chance to take that 5 minutes, 10 minutes to pour into yourself. And so with therapy, it is becoming more flexible. You're getting more therapists who are multi-state licensed, so they can cross state lines and practice more. We have telehealth. So you don't have to come into a room and sit on a couch. You can do virtually and be in the comfort of your own home or on a lunch break. So it is becoming more accessible to people, and we just have to look at it like, you don't have to do this alone.
That's great. So I think it's a great point for us to have a quick commercial break. And before we go to the commercial, I want you to think about some ways that you can invest more in yourself and put them in the comments so we can see what you have going on and give some response. And so we can kind of guide you, like she said. A therapist is guidance, right? They're the navigation. So if you want navigation, you also have to be open to sharing what you need to share so you can get the proper navigation. So hold on for a few minutes, well, actually a minute, and we'll be right back with the second half of Girl Talk Mental Health with Dr. Shelby.
You weren't meant to break. You were set apart. What if your deepest pain was the birthplace of your greatest purpose? Meet Gingerbread, a child caught in the chaos of her mother's depression and suicide attempts. She never asked for trauma, shame, or to feel invisible, but she found something greater. Set Apart, the journey to find hope through loneliness, shame, and death is more than a book. It's the breakthrough you didn't know you needed. If you've ever said, "I'm fine," when you were falling apart. If you've ever thought, "This story isn't for me," it is. Don't let fear, excuses, or busyness rob you of healing. This book will shatter the silence, stir your soul, and remind you, you were never forgotten. You were set apart. Set Apart, the journey to find hope in times of shame, loneliness, and death, by author Virginia Dale Manning. Available now, because hope can't wait.
So, welcome back to the second half of Girl Talk Mental Health. We have Dr. Shelbi Bradley here. And so, I want you to be honest, especially for this second half, and drop your answers in the comment. What has not healing cost you? Has it cost you time? Has it cost you peace? Has it cost you money? Or has it cost you relationships? Because it's most definitely going to cost you something. So, Dr. Shelby, what are some subtle but hidden, no, not hidden, some subtle but costly patterns people don't realize are tied to their emotional wounds?
Absolutely. The first one that comes to my mind is burnout, overworking, overworking ourselves, going, the constant need to go and be doing and not knowing. Someone told me yesterday, you know what? I actually thrive better when there's a little bit of chaos. And I said, no, you don't. You have just trained your body. Your body has just been trained that to move in those type of situations. And when you have a little bit of peace and when you're a little bit of at rest, you don't know what that feels like. It's abnormal to you, so you feel like you got to overwork, rooted in the need to prove worth or feeling to avoid the feeling of not being enough. That's number one. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. The second one, which is kind of in that same mindset, is people pleasing, having to say yes to everything and not knowing when to say no. That leads to us feeling undercharged, overextending ourselves, so more overworking and burnout, and resentment, guilt, you know? So these are things that people aren't realizing that are tied to emotional wounds that come with things like maybe you had a parent that was over, that expected you to do a lot, had high expectations for you. And so those high expectations now turned into overworking and people pleasing, saying yes, avoiding conflict. That's another one, right? They don't know how to set boundaries or, not advocate for themselves, feeling like that they don't want to argue with somebody. I don't want somebody to be mad at me. So that's tied to emotional wounds. This is another one that I've heard a lot this week. Emotional shutdown. I shut down. I just don't want to talk. When I'm mad at someone, I may not talk to them for a week. I had this one girl tell me she hadn't talked to her partner in a week and a half because of an argument.
And they in the same house.
They in the same house. I said, well, what are y'all? Well, she said, we speak well on like a need to know. Good morning. Here's the kids this. Here's the kids that. And we keep going. And I'm like, that's so unhealthy. And I asked her, I said, well, where does that come from? And she says, well, my mom used to do it. So it's an emotional wound that she saw and passed down. and now she's picking it up, and she didn't even really realize that she was doing it.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to make decisions. They don't trust well. They don't trust themselves well or other people. Um, and then the last one I can think of is caretaker role, whether that's financially or emotionally, feeling like I have to take care of somebody.
Hmm.
I have to do more. I'm all that they have. They need me. They don't have anything like that, and that is sometimes come from an emotional wound of grief, of guilt, of trauma, of fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, and we feel like we got to take care of everybody. So those are just some of the things that I feel like are some of the most common patterns that I see, that a lot of us, and some of us say, oh, all of those are me, or that's me, but a lot of those we take on and they kind of overlap with one another.
And you made a good point because people do tend to stick with what's familiar, even if it's unhealthy. And you try to tell them that to do something a different way, or they see people doing things a different way, and they think that's wrong when it's actually healthier and it's
Right.
your way to wealth. But they think that is wrong because it's so familiar to them. Because mama did it, grandmama them did it, and I've seen it all my life, so it must be the right way to do it, even if it's
Right.
toxic, right? Yeah, people have to break those patterns, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So, for someone who feels like they truly can't afford therapy right now, and I don't know why, because if you work and you get EAPs, you got some kind of insurance benefits, they got other resources that give half price or free therapy, so there's really no excuse. But anyway, so what's the first step they can take to start investing in their healing anyway?
So what I'm going to give you is maybe not financial tips. I'm going to give you some, but on how to, like you mentioned. But I think the first thing people need to do is get honest with themselves about, is it that I really can't afford it? Or is it that I'm avoiding something? I think that they really need to start with that, because you have to be ready to do the work. You have to be ready. You may not know what that work is going to look like, but you first need to be honest with yourself. Can I really not afford this, or am I avoiding talking about something?
Hmm.
So that's that. And then two, maybe sit down with someone and do a budget, and say, okay, if I stop at Starbucks or Seven Brew 3 or 4 times a week, that might be your copay. That might be, like you said, what you have to pay if you have a copay. There are a lot of companies coming around to finding ways to emotionally support their um, employees. So looking into EAPs. And if you find a therapist that does not take your insurance or does not take an EAP, ask them, because it really takes nothing for a therapist to get enrolled with an EAP company. Literally, sometimes it's just the application and some time spent. What is EAP? It is an employee assistance program that is typically an additional benefit offered through your employer on top of your insurance. So I would start with that. I would start with looking for support groups. If you just like, I just don't have it. I have a really high deductible. Unfortunately, in the state of Mississippi, our teachers and our state employees have some of the highest deductibles that have to be met before their insurances can pay, and they also always don't have EAP programs. So what I tell them is to look for community resources, community-based therapy, or ask the therapist that they do know, do they offer sliding scales, or do they offer some type of self-pay benefit that could work in your budget. Budget it out. Budget, like, like I said, if therapists say, okay, well, I can do $75. When I didn't have insurance, or I had a really high deductible, I was only going once a month because I was paying out of pocket. When my husband's a retired educator, we were on his insurance. We had this really high deductible that we had to meet, and we just weren't meeting it. We just weren't doing that. And so we had to budget it out. But there's also other free and low cost resources like the podcast that you're on right now, books, support groups, journals that you can get from different stores and different websites that may be beneficial to you, so you can start doing some of the work on your own. But those are some of the things that, for people who say they just can't afford it, get honest about what it is, look at your budget, look into your insurance companies, and then find and use free and low reduced resources like podcasts, journals, and support groups.
That's some good information. We sure appreciate you coming through to Girl Talk Mental Health today. So let the audience know where they can connect with you at if you have
Yeah.
something going on, some special offer.
Yeah. So my website is powerfulmindscounseling.net, and you can learn all about me. You can fill out a new client inquiry form or just an inquiry form to get more information to have a free 15-minute consult. I am on Facebook under powerfulminds.com and also on Instagram under powerful_minds counseling. And so I don't have any special offers right now. I do want to just kind of plug my husband. He recently wrote a book called Life Beyond the Cap and Gown. So it's a instructional book on what to do with your high schoolers who are don't know what to do after high school. And so he's a retired teacher and basketball coach. So he's seeing what the outside world looks like. So it's a transition book. He's having a book signing here in Mississippi on May the 2nd. And so the books are on sale. You can go to our website, powerfulmindscounseling.net, and click on Coach Ed Bradley, and it'll take you to his website to purchase the books.
Okay, that sounds good. And make sure you put it in the note in your bio so they can click on it as well and get that information.
Absolutely.
Because yeah,
Absolutely.
we into the fellas getting their mental health done as well. Because July is Male Mental Health Awareness Month, and so
Mhm.
that's very important. So, but thank you for that plug. And I want the audience to know that therapy is a wealth building move, and it's not just about money. And if you've been putting it off, you're not saving money. You're delaying your breakthrough. So I want you to subscribe, comment in the show, go connect with Dr. Bradley, get her husband's book, and think about asking yourself, am I really broke, or have I just been avoiding the investment that could change everything in my life? And so we'll see you all next week for another powerful therapist takeover episode of Girl Talk Mental Health.
Thank you for joining us for Girl Talk Mental Health. Remember, your mental health is your wealth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to at Virginia Del Manning.